Good evening. My name is Gottesman, and it is my honor to be your Master of Ceremonies tonight at this 58th annual dinner for the Hebrew Academy of Long Beach. Tonight, we are here in what is known as the Greenhouse, where Wednesday night, this place is going to be going wild as the DRS Wildcats take on the TABC Storm in a basketball semifinal. And while that night is going to be going crazy as the Greenhouse, tonight I guess we could call it the Purple and Greenhouse, and maybe designed by Barney the Dinosaur. You know, tonight's dinner honoring Margot and Dove Seawald and Mark and Rena Questel. Unfortunately, as many of you know, Margot had to rush to Israel to be with her parents, Cantor David and Mrs. Rivka Bixer. We wish Margot's mom a refuah shlema, and we hope that this dinner will be a zchut for her refuah shlema. Rivka bat Rachel. I would like to welcome Dove's mother, Mrs. Carol Seawald. Mark's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Shimon and Debbie Questel, and Rena's parents, Dr. and Mrs. Israel and Rebecca Rifkin. The last time I emceed a Halb dinner, it was for the Yeshiva's 50th anniversary, honoring our past presidents. It was a beautiful and very nostalgic evening where we recounted the founding of Halb. There was plenty of talk about the good old days. You know, I entered Halb in 1969. I like to tell people my first memory of Halb was when Rabbi Friedman walked into our classroom to tell us that the Mets won the World Series. Hasn't happened too often since then. And I've been a parent at the yeshiva for the last 20 years, so I remember the good old days as well as most people here. And things have changed since then. We're a yeshiva of about 350 kids housed in one building. Most of us were from Oceanside, Long Beach, and Far Rockaway. Today, we're 1,700 students in 4 buildings on 3 campuses. We have students from all over Long Island, Queens, and Brooklyn. But some things have changed, but most things, and the most important thing, has not changed and will never change. And that is the hashkafa of our founding principal, Rabbi Dr. Armin H. Friedman. The hashkafa that he built that school upon. And that is to instill in our children the love of Torat Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael, and to teach them the concepts of Bein Adam L'Chaveiro, what it means to be a friend, be part of a community, and be Balei Tzedakah and Balei Chesed. At no time were the commitments to those values more evident than in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, a catastrophe whose devastation many in our Halb family are still feeling and still recovering from. The Halb response to the storm is exemplified by what we have here tonight. When our friends and families were in need, when we needed more scholarship money than ever, you responded by making tonight the most financially successful dinner in the history of our yeshiva. We are a family. Family takes care of one another. I have never been more proud of Halb than I am tonight. Halb President, Mr. Lance Hurt, took office just before the storm, and at a tremendous professional and personal cost, he put his commitment to Halb and to our children above all else. I could say the same thing about our chairman of the board, Jerry Williams, but Jerry doesn't have a life outside of Halb, so he just does what he normally does. No, that's really not nice to say. I'm sure Jerry has a life outside of Halb, just none of us know about it. At this time, I would also like to thank and welcome my dinner co-chairman, Lisa and Howie Rubin, Shalom and Mickey Katz, and I'd like to wish a happy birthday to my girlfriend for the past 30 years and dinner co-chairman, Mrs. Judith Gottesman. Also, happy anniversary to Morty and Lorraine Sone. I would like to welcome our principals, Mrs. Helen Spurn, Rabbi Yisrael Kamenetsky and Rabbi David Plotkin, our administrators, rabbeim, morot, teachers, support staff, and parents. You know, talk about the support staff. Unfortunately, too many of you weren't at our kickoff dinner, but to me, one of the most moving moments at that kickoff dinner is during the video to see Anthony, our head of maintenance, crying when he first got off the bus and looked at what hell was like. That is the dedication of our staff to the Hebrew Academy and how much they love our children and our yeshiva. As I mentioned at the outset, Margot Seawald, who along with her husband Dov, are Rabbi Dr. Armin H. Friedman awardees tonight. Margot was unfortunately not with us tonight. But as a former Talmidah of Rabbi Friedman, she told me that her love for Hal, that her dedication to the school and the values that she got as a student at Hal, the Hakaras HaTov that she and Dov have for the school, led them to accept this honor tonight. I spoke with Margot before she left, and she told me how much it means to her personally to receive this honor named for her beloved principal. At the kickoff dinner, at the kickoff breakfast, Rena Questel told those in attendance that as a child, she was always jealous of her cousins, the Presses, who were Hal students. They spoke of how much they loved Hal, what a great place it was to go to school. Rena reminisced how as a young girl in the late 70s, she often fantasized what it would be like to go to Hal, and what a dream come true it was for her to have her children as students in the yeshiva. Now, I'm thinking back to the late 70s when Rena was having these fantasies, and I have to say that looking back, being back in Hal was not my #1 fantasy. But honestly, we couldn't have picked better guests of honor, nor a younger-looking guest of honor than Mark, who are more deserving, who shine as sterling examples of the Hal Hashkafa more than Rena and Mark. Thank you very much. Okay, my time is done. At this time, I would like to introduce you to the... You clapped when I said my time is done. Very nice. I'd like to introduce you to the man who makes everything at HALB happen. He is the engine and the energy of our yeshiva. And when he takes a day off, the place falls apart. Thank God he doesn't take a day or a night off. To make a special presentation to our Hakaras HaTov awardees, HALB Executive Director, and the man who coached my synagogue basketball team to 2 undefeated championship seasons, Mr. Richard Hagler. Let's try that again. Mr. Richard Hagler. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, your time is done. I actually had my secretary Jeannie write it in big print because I couldn't see it, and it's big enough and I still can't see it. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the 58th annual dinner of the Hebrew Academy of Long Beach. This certainly has been a very long winter for our HALB families. On October 29th, Hurricane Sandy caused devastation and destruction to the homes and lives of so many of our parents and students. To make matters worse, our school buildings in Long Beach, in Hewlett, and in this beautiful facility in Woodmere were severely impacted as well. The flooding, the lack of power, and the lack of heat caused a disruption in the personal and school lives of so many of our students. Nevertheless, the yeshiva and its parents, students, rabbeim, teachers, and staff, many of whom also suffered the same devastating destruction, were ready to pull it all together and begin the process of getting our students back into the learning and studying mode. I would like to give special thank you, Hakaras HaTov is the theme, to Rabbi Kamenetsky, Rabbi Plotkin, and Mrs. Byrne, and their assistants, associates, and all of their staff. Special thanks to my office staff, and especially thank you to Chaim Hollander, who was at every 5 a.m. meeting. Who was at every 5 a.m. and 11 p.m. meeting and worked tirelessly on behalf of the yeshiva. In order to accomplish our goals, a number of wonderful yeshivot, shuls, and private citizens stepped up and said to us, how can we help? What can we do to at least partially relieve some of the stress that your yeshiva and families are feeling? Tonight, we would like to express a small token of our Hakarat HaTov and thank you to all those institutions and individuals who came forward, and in some cases at great inconvenience to their own institution and themselves, enabled us to get back to the business of education. At this time, I'd like to mention all by name. I ask you to hold your applause to the end, but these people really deserve our applause. The congregation Beth Shalom, Rabbi Kenneth Hain, who hosted the DRS grades 11 and 12. To Congregation Knesset Israel, the White Shul. To my Baruch Asa, Rabbi Eitan Feiner, who, by the way, is a HAL graduate. To our President Chaim Liebtag, who housed the first grade. To the Yeshiva of South Shore, Rabbi Mordechai Kamenetsky, Rosh Yeshiva, who hosted the DRS 9th and 10th grade. To the Young Israel of Lawrence Cedarhurst, to Rabbi Moshe Teitelbaum, and to Mr. Baruch Weinstein, our own board member and president of the Young Israel, who hosted the junior high school grades 6, 7, and 8. To Mr. and Mrs. Warren Levi of Warren Levi Martial Arts, who helped host grades 1 through 5. To Steve Kaufman, Ambassador Kaufman, who also hosted grades 1 through 5. To Mr. Gary Shaw, Superintendent of District 15, who hosted HAL grades 1 and 2 and was prepared to host as many grades as possible. To them, we all issue our Hakarat HaTov, and we say thank you very much. These individuals truly exemplify the meaning of Hakarat HaTov, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, love thy neighbor as thyself, and they showed it. And for that, we all thank them and forever are indebted to them for the graciousness. I would like to ask all of them to please come up on stage to accept the token of our appreciation on behalf of the Hebrew Academy. Please step up and get your plaques and come up on stage. I'd like to ask Mr. Lansford, President, and Rabbi Kamenetsky, Rabbi Plotkin, and Mrs. Byrne to please join us for a photo.